Welcome to episode 21 of the Flag Stays Down podcast. Tonight it's myself, Andy, along with Matt and Parker. Boys, kind of an up and down week for Chelsea football. Up and down week if you're a fan of Wisconsin sports, and just I don't know. It's just a weird weekend in general. I'm glad Chelsea could top it off with with the win today. But how you guys doing on this Sunday evening?
I'm all right. It was a tough Saturday evening, like you said, with the Packers bowing out of the playoffs. So that wasn't pleasant to stomach. And then it kind of set a weird vibe for the Sunday match. You know, everything kind of felt negative because we were kind of surrounded ourselves in negative land with the Packers. So it was a hard one to kind of get hyped up for. I think we all had like negative juju or negative vibes about it. So it's good to see it come through. So I'm happy about the win today. How about you, Matt?
Yeah. Again, kind of speaks to the week. It was kind of an up and down week. Things for me were kind of up and down too. Obviously we didn't have the greatest confidence after the Packers loss, going into the Chelsea game. We don't like to try and have that carry over into our other sporting events and that kind of mentality. But, after the previous, the mid-match or the midweek performance with Brighton, it was a little tough. You could almost kind of see the writing on the wall, but all the ship was set right, and ended on a very good note.
And talking about ups and downs, in terms of that match, Chelsea they didn't dominate possession, but they held most of possession in that Brighton match. If you're looking at the stats, it looks like Chelsea had a pretty decent game, but Ziyech's goal in the 28th minute was kind of against the run of play at that point. And Matt, like you said, it was only a matter of time before Brighton would equalize. And in the 60th minute, Adam Webster did just that. So, again, it seems like we're always splitting points or dropping points when it comes to Brighton. I don't know what it is about Graham Potter and his guys, but they certainly put up a fight. But today Spurs 2-0 win. It was, what is it now, the fourth time we've beaten Spurs in this season. So it was good. Hakim Ziyech was on the score sheet again. Thiago Silva on the score sheet. Top to down, top to down. I don't know. It was a good match for the boys. But I'm curious to know, what you guys saw, because they were two different matches. How is midweek Chelsea faltering and weekend Chelsea thriving?
Well, I was kind of starting to attribute it to not necessarily midweek Chelsea versus weekend Chelsea, but more like Cup Chelsea versus Premier League Chelsea, because it felt like those were two different squads, and everyone was kind of praising Tuchel on getting his boys ready for a 1 or 2 match tie to advance and that sort of preparation. But then once it becomes the league, after the City loss, it kind of, for whatever reason, they lose that focus and they can't be as ready or as geared up for those matches. So I was starting to think it was that. The Spurs match kind of, disproves that a little bit. But yeah, sometimes it's just that tired look that we get, and it feels just a little stale. And the word I kept kind of going back to was uninspired. But I missed the match live, and then tried to go back and rewatch. And knowing the outcome and seeing sort of an uninspired Chelsea made me turn it off after about a half hour. And that's something that's super uncharacteristic for me. Usually I'm able to kind of stomach through the matches, and this one just was a little different for me. And I just said, you know what, not worth it. I had a pretty busy week. I started a new job, and I was a little bit spent from my energy, and I didn't want to commit the rest of my time to watching a not great performance and to watch him kind of struggle through the rest of the match. But Matt, you sat through it live, and you were the Lone Ranger updating the crew on the group text. So I'm going to kick it to you and get your take on things.
It was tough. There's really no other word. It was tough to watch. You felt like it's a game that we should win pretty handily. But at the same time, we saw what happened a few weeks prior with against Brighton, that Danny Welbeck, 95th minute kind of equalizer. I think what kind of epitomized the entire game was the celebration after Ziyech's goal. That was the most accurate description of that game. He scores, off a slight deflection, but still, we take those. And he just nothing. Even the rest of the team, like Ziyech, sure, we can understand he's kind of that way, very kind of stoic in that nature. But when everybody else just kind of comes around him and they're not really celebrating, they're just like, hey, cool, you did this. Good job. Here's a participation trophy. To me, that's all I needed to see. And I knew right away, as soon as that happened, Brighton were going to equalize. The fact that it was on a wide open header, to me, that's an issue. With us constantly praising how good our defense is, to give up a wide open header, and we even saw that against in the Tottenham game today with Harry Kane. He had a wide open header. I just don't know what's going on there, but it's, a draw is better than a loss, but at the same time, I don't think that the Premier League break can come soon enough. Obviously, we're going to go out on a high note, but when you start looking at everything that's happened with the postponements, when you look at things like the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, who's playing who, you don't know if your match is going to get played because of what the other team is doing. You don't know that. And Chelsea has gone straight through without anything. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of people who are tired, just physically, mentally, just exhausted. And I think that the Brighton game was a perfect example of where we were at that time, just tired. But credit to TT and the staff for getting everybody ready for Tottenham. I mean, they came out guns blazing. Like, we had a good shot in the first opening 2 minutes, right? It's just, he's very good at getting his teams ready, even after a tough match like we had against Brighton. And I think that this break is going to be perfect for us. I think it's going to be at the right time for us. And I'm just excited to see what happens after the break.
I think it absolutely comes down to fatigue, Matt, like you said, and courtesy of our guy Lee Dixon today. Chelsea played 46 matches already this year in 5.5 months. You're basically playing 2 matches a week for half a year at this point. I believe it was no one in the top 5 leagues in Europe has played as many matches as Chelsea. And we're about to go play the Club World Cup, and we're on to the final of the Carabao Cup. We're moving on to the FA Cup. Like, it's just going to keep coming. But we haven't had a break now since the last international break in, what was that, November? Early November?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's fatigue. And honestly, this team wasn't built to withstand major injuries to multiple players. We had maybe 2 guys at every position except in the midfield where you've got 4, 5, 6 players. But to lose both Chills and Reese, and then you're having to trot out Dave, and then Malang Sarr or Marcus Alonso on the other side every single match for weeks on end. It's tiring just watching. So I can only imagine how the boys are feeling. So. Matt, like you said, props to Tuchel and the staff for getting the boys up for Spurs today. And honestly, I think it was like let's go out guns blazing. Let's give it all here, because Tuchel's giving everybody off next week anyways. So, hopefully they all take advantage of that, and nobody comes back with COVID or obscure injuries.
since we've been doing this podcast, I mean, this is episode 21. That's 21 weeks. I can remember maybe 1 week where we didn't have a Chelsea match. It hasn't happened at all. So the other funny thing I was laughing about to myself was if you rewound the clock a week and you look at the results of 1 draw, 1 win, it is way better to beat Tottenham than it is to if you were to flip it, we draw Tottenham and beat Brighton. I think every single fan would rather beat their North London, rivals in Tottenham just to rub it in their face a little bit. And now they're on a bit of a win streak against them. I think it was like six straight matches that they haven't scored against us. That's something we can hold over, our little brother to the north of us. So I'm very happy to have beaten them in the USA famous Dos a Cero fashion. It's a good win. It's a good win to get over Tottenham.
Yeah, it was a very inspiring, right? Parks, you said Brighton was very uninspiring. This was a very inspiring performance. Everybody going full bore. It was when we were all talking, it was hard to nominate our get the fuck out of here and actually have it be somebody from Chelsea. That was the tough part. I feel like almost everybody on our team had a good game, which obviously made it tougher to choose our man of the match. But it's just one of those things where that's what you look for. Those are the games that we expect, where everybody's playing to their level. Tottenham is a team that we should boss around, right? They just got Conte. He's trying to figure things out. They're going through a lot of that. Son was out, which is a big advantage to any team playing Tottenham. It's just it was a very good performance all the way around, all ends of the pitch. And it's the exact way that you want to kind of go into an international break, just on top, everything going, and then let everybody kind of clear their heads and get refocused for the upcoming schedule.
So the man of the week, put aside man of the match and man of the get the fuck out of here. I think the man of the week is Hakim Ziyech. 2 goals in the week, 1 against Brighton, 1 against Spurs. Possibly the goal of the season against Spurs, though we'll get to that in just a moment here. But I'm still seeing a lot of people calling for Ziyech to be more consistent, for Ziyech to make a greater impact on the squad. He's got 5 goal contributions in his last 9 matches. So, I'm not sure exactly how much more consistent he can be. It seems like every time he starts, he's whipping in some kind of dangerous ball. I think honestly the problem is Tuchel didn't play him for a good 2 to 3 weeks, which we had talked about on the pod. What's going on? He's been our basically most dangerous player for a minute now, and then he just disappears for a while. So I think there's some revisionist history going on there, but props to him, man. He has proven people wrong, I think, this year so far.
I think up until he scored that goal against Brighton, he had not the best match. And I think that's what people are kind of using in isolation to kind of grade his performance. And then, he gets a goal and people still want to just talk about the negatives and talk about his overall performance. So it sounded very negative. It sounded like he didn't have his best, first 25 minutes against Brighton, which is fair. But in the match I watched, that Tottenham match, he was tracking back. He was winning balls. He was active. He was... Yeah, and then he was putting his most dangerous balls in that he has most days of the season. I mean, you can't make him score off of those, and we talk a lot about it on this podcast. But if Ram put some of those away, if Timo put some of those away in matches in the past, I don't think we're talking about this anymore. And so I think his quality has been pretty high, more so than other players. He gets involved, and I think Spurs was his best match of the season. I think he just shone, and him and Mount, working together on that right side were just brilliant together. Both were making runs. Both were, playing off of each other. There was some Ole chants at the end of the match. I mean, that's the stuff that you just love. And I think those two were kind of going back and forth in my head about man of the match, but you got to give it to Hakim after a goal like that. I mean, it was just a worldly. It was just fantastic. So he definitely earned it, and by far and away the man of the week. So I think you're right, Collins. I think he's surprising some people. I think he's definitely he needs to kind of keep putting them together, but I think he's there. I think he's definitely been more consistent than he had been in the prior parts of the season.
The biggest thing is that Tuchel has taken off the restrictions around Ziyech. He doesn't have him as strictly a right wing. He has him playing more of, and I'm not going to make the comparison, but he has him playing freely like an Eden Hazard did, right? He's moving all over the pitch. He's got free reign to do what he needs to in order to create. I think that's where he does his best work. Finding those open spaces, being able to link up, being able to put in that dangerous ball. And again, Parks, to your point, like if he's putting in that dangerous ball, he's not the one who needs to finish it. That's not on him. He's given people opportunities, and if they're not capitalizing, that's not his fault. I just think that he needed some time to adapt to the way that Tuchel wanted him to play. I mean, we saw that last year with Cho when he got subbed on at halftime, and then he was subbed off 20 minutes after the fact. I think it was against Southampton. Like, it takes time. If you're not doing what is expected of you, then you're not going to play. And I think he has accepted that role. I see the effort that he's bringing game in and game out, tracking back, doing all kind of the dirty work. He's a very finesse player. Like, let's not get it wrong. He's a very finesse player, very technically gifted, but now you see him doing the dirty work too. And I think that was the biggest thing that was kind of holding him back, is he just wanted to be the creator. He didn't want to kind of do all those little things. And now we're starting to see that out of him. And I think you're getting the best version out of him right now. And it shows with his performances. He's doing everything that we would expect somebody under that system to do. So I've been very pleased with his performances. I have no issue with Christian not playing at all at this point. Like, just keep him on the bench. I have no problem with, at least right now, and we might get into this later, but with Kai being on the bench, I don't have an issue currently with Timo being on the bench. I think we're doing a lot of positive things with what we have out there. And, Tommy T he's not wavering from it. He knows that it can work. And it's just one of those things that's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm excited for what's going to happen after the break.
What gets me the most excited is that Tuchel has figured out, Matt, like you said, how to unlock Ziyech. And I think the difference I've seen is the matches where he has basically an attacker playing on that side with him. Even including Reece James. It's when it's him and Dave along that side that the struggle occurs. But, when you've got Pulisic playing right back, when you've got Mason Mount alongside you in that 4-2-2-2, yeah. When he's got people along with him, when he's got people who can make that overlap and open up space for him, that's when he's at his best. You saw it on his goal today. There was that cut behind him to draw a defender, which left just the slightest amount of space open that Ziyech exploited for that goal. So it gives me hope for other players in the squad that Tuchel's been able to figure out Ziyech, because Ziyech's, he's got the reputation of being a little bit of an enigma. Kept out of the Moroccan side for AFCON, and left Ajax kind of unceremoniously. So it makes me excited, and again, I'm glad that Tuchel is our manager and not somewhere else.
And it seems like that's been his MO, is getting the best out of people and figuring out how to manage people to get the most out of them. I think Tony Rudiger is another classic example of that. Just someone who's not informed, comes into a different system and buys in, and here we are. So I'm with you, man. I'm happy he's our manager. I feel like there's this just growing confidence with him week to week, and it sounds like everyone's pretty happy with how he's managing people. And that's what makes me the most excited. Is I've always wanted that like super consistent manager. I've always wanted that guy, that Arsene Wenger or whoever that's there for long enough to make an impact. Pep Guardiola, just that mainstay manager that we all buy into, and it just hasn't happened that way yet. And I'm crossing my fingers that this is our guy.
Well, apparently this week, I can't remember if it was Matt Law or Nazar Kinsella or whoever it was, but one of those inside people at the club had mentioned that Abramovich is very happy with the way Tuchel handled the whole Big Rom situation. That Tuchel, Petr Cech, and Marina are all real close now because of the way it was handled, and Abramovich was thrilled with the way it was handled. So, normally you hear that you got the support of the owner, and then a couple weeks later it means you're fired. But this one comes off a little different. So it's good to see change. All right, well let's have a little debate here, because I know we've got some differing opinions. Going back to Ziyech, his goal was phenomenal. It was the definition of beautiful, in my opinion. But we did have another potential goal of the season nominee earlier in the month, and that was Mateo Kovacic against Liverpool, hitting the volley. If you had to pick, gun to your head, which goal would you say is the Chelsea goal of the season thus far?
I'll start with the at least controversial in our friend group opinion, and say it's Kova's. I think both are fantastic, and I think it's really close. The reason I give the nod to Kova's is just how it happened and what he had to do to get to that ball to put the strike on it that he did. And so, that ball is over his head. He's backpedaling, and then off of 1 foot, kind of like scissor kicks it and hits it beautifully and hits the post. Ziyech's also phenomenal, obviously, but he's in front of the ball with time and gets to kind of roll it out to himself and set himself up for that goal. And I don't know, because I don't have either skill, but I'm guessing that the one where the ball's coming kind of semi over your head and you're backing up and then kicking a ball that's coming down on you is harder to do more consistently than if the ball is kind of rolling to you, or if you set the ball up and roll it in front of you and then hit it the way you want to hit it. That ball's on the ground and you can get a clean strike on it more times than not. My guess would be if both men tried to replicate their goal another 100 times, that Ziyech can do that more consistently than Kova could do it for that. So those are my reasons why I'm thinking Kova's is a bit more of that anomaly, like how in the fuck did you hit that ball than Ziyech's.
And so that, Parker, that leads me into my argument. How much of that was skill versus how much of that was luck?
Right? Doesn't matter.
I completely agree. It all counts the same, right? It all counts the same. We've seen him try and attempt things like that before, and it has been awful. We've seen other players from different leagues, different teams, whatever, try and do that, and it is terrible. He got the sweet spot. I will not give him. I will not knock that at all. Ziyech, Hugo Lloris. I would say he's probably a top 20 keeper in the world. I think top 20 would be fair for him. let's be honest, he plays for Tottenham, so he faces a lot of shots. He didn't even move. He thought that thing was gone. He didn't even move. All he did was look, and then he didn't know what to do. Obviously, all three of us have played a lot of FIFA. We usually don't look at replays of goals, but that would be one of the goals where we would keep looking at it and be like, how did you hit that? Like things like that. That is that type of goal. It was out wide past the post. It was higher than the crossbar. Postage stamp from Arlo White, I don't think does it enough justice.
You said it deserves to hang up in the Louvre.
you could not walk up to the crossbar and place that ball any better. That takes a lot of skill. I think Kova's was more kind of luck. I mean, obviously there's skill involved in it. I'm not taking that away from him. Obviously, I'm a big Kova fan. I'm not taking that away from him. But I think there is more skill in Ziyech's goal than Kova's.
Yeah, Matt, I agree with you 100%. I think Ziyech's is the goal of the year. For a lot of the same reasons you'd mentioned. I think Kova's was a lot of luck. And, if you're talking about skill, Ziyech's was perfecting the skill. Just the amount of whip on it, the amount of dip on it. I was reading tweets from people who were sitting behind the goal, just could not believe how quickly and how late that ball dipped to go into the goal. So yeah, Lloris didn't make a move because no one in the stadium thought that was going in. I didn't think that was going in at first. I scared the crap out of my son and my wife as soon as that ball went in. It was like, oh, kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. It just reminds me of, you watch some of those old Chelsea videos from the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and for whatever reason, it just seems like the ball had a lot more whip on it back then. And it's just what it looked like. Ziyech was a master with that ball. He was a magician with that left foot. So I think because of the skill, I think that it's got to be Chelsea's goal of the season. But man, what a nice problem to have that you got possibly two goals of the season in 1 month in the same club.
Chelsea's goal of the season thus far, Collins. We have another 82 matches to go, right? Don't we?
Roughly. So one other thing that I will say, Ziyech almost got his second, and he hit that ball so pure. If Lloris had been a little bit over to what would have been his left side, if he would have been a half a step over, like to be able to hit that ball coming back to you and to be able to put your foot through it and have that whip going away from the keeper to the far post. Honestly, I was so excited. As soon as I saw him load up for that, I was like, oh, this is going in. Which
we had it was a great build up to it too, Matt.
Yeah.
With Mason had a good shot on goal as well. And I was getting myself very ready to like really firmly shut the Ziyech haters up, because that would have been two just ridiculous goals in a span of 90 seconds or whatever it was. So that one got me out of my seat, because I was already excited celebrating the first one, and then that one would have been ridiculous. So yeah, that one. Whew.
Yeah, I remember looking at the group chat. I don't think any of us knew like what to say or like what gift to throw out there. Like we didn't know, because I think we're all absorbing it for like 2 minutes. Like what just happened?
More.
Yeah, just we didn't know what to do. I remember I was sitting at home and I'm just looking. And I'm like, oh my, I'm sorry, what? Like, what just happened? It was a thing of beauty, and you don't see that often. And when it happens, it's just something you have to look at multiple times. Even in the commentary, they were saying usually we don't show like 4 different replays of the same goal, but we're going to show this one multiple times. it was a thing of beauty.
All right, we'll going from one masterclass to another. Let's talk about Jorginho's defense. Oh, I'm sorry. Thiago Silva's defending.
Drink. Nice.
So not only his defending, but his hate of Spurs. He's become the first Chelsea defender to score both home and away against Spurs in the same season ever. I don't know if it's just something about this man. He's been here 18 months, and he's got a cult following already. And man, at the age of 37, for him to be doing it the way he's doing it is truly something special. You know, what did you guys think of Thiago Silva's performance today?
It's what I expect out of him at this point. We expect, if you're looking at like out of 10 rating, we expect probably a 7.5 and above out of him every single game. And I think I'm even lowballing that. He's so smart. Everywhere that he's gone, everywhere that he's played, you can't say a bad thing about him. You just can't. And that's hard to find in football these days, at least with the new up and comers that are coming through. It is tough to say that. I firmly believe that he could go, if he was at Chelsea, he could go to City, he could go to Tottenham, he could go to Man U, and he would still be loved by Chelsea. I really do, because that's the kind of person that he is. Whatever badge he's wearing, he is fully invested. And that is something that is very hard to come by. It's kind of a dying breed, so to speak. You can't help but love the man. You can't find anything bad to say about him.
All I'll add that hasn't been said 100 times on this podcast before. The only unique thing I can think of on the spot is, one, I'm happy he plays for Chelsea. And I'm happy he's not at City or at United or anywhere else late in his career. I'm happy he's playing for Chelsea. One of my favorite moments in the match was just a screenshot of him working with Sarr, just talking to him and showing him where to be, and kind of just it was just a really quick clip in between something, ball out of bounds or whatever. And I'm just happy that our guys get to learn from one of the best. That he is the teacher. He is player coach out there almost, and he's leading our defense, and you can't say a negative thing about the guy. And the respect for him shows from his opponents, and then the respect from our fans. He embraces it as well, and that's the stuff that you love to see after the match. And we talked about it before, but him applauding the fans and the fans chanting his name, like that's what you just love to see.
I still can't believe that he's playing at this level at age 37. That it blows my mind. He's the Tom Brady of the Premier League right now. But I've got 2 questions about Thiago Silva for you guys. We'll start with the first one here. Is he the best center back in the Premier League this year?
I would say he's the most consistent. I think that Tony is probably the more valuable center back. And the reason why I say that, Arlo threw out a stat today that when Rudiger plays, Chelsea allows 0.7 goals per game, when he's not playing, it's 1.3 goals per game. I don't know what the numbers are on Silva, but I think Rudy is the more impactful player, just 1-to-1. You can definitely make the argument that Thiago Silva, with all of his experience teaching, Trev, Sar, Christensen, anybody else who's going to be coming back next year because he signed that 1-year deal. You can argue that he's got the experience and he's going to train people and do all that stuff. But I think right now, Tony slightly edges out Thiago Silva.
Yeah, I don't know about the rest of the league. I don't watch enough matches to kind of compare him against the league, but against Rudiger, Rudy's influence is starting to bleed into our team, which you love. I mean, you've got the Tony Rudiger school of shithousery and antics during and after games and being that guy. And you're seeing Dave do it. You're seeing Sar do it. You're seeing Trev do it. And so it's kind of becoming part of Chelsea's defensive identity. And I love it. I think we've played with more tenacity on the defense than we ever have, or at least in the past couple of years. I won't say ever, but we're playing hard-nosed defense, and we're playing really strong, and our goal record is showing it. And teams, I feel like, don't want to come play against us. So I think his influence is definitely felt and will be missed if he doesn't sign that contract. Probably more so than Silva, but we're splitting hairs here. It's 1A and 1B for me.
I didn't even think about Rudiger. When I posed the question, you look at the other teams around the league. Virgil van Dijk has been beaten finally this year. Been beaten off the dribble. Manchester United's defense is a joke.
Phil Jones.
Yeah. Harry Maguire.
Same person.
Yeah. So, maybe Diaz out of City would be the closest comp, but you guys mentioned Rudiger and the school of shithousery, and absolutely 100% that it's quite the asset to have. But it's two different styles. Rudiger is more, I'm going to get in your face, you're going to come to me, and then I'm going to take the ball from you. Thiago Silva is, I'm going to get there before you do because I know what you're doing before you're doing it. I think that is an invaluable asset, especially in that back three, for him to anchor it at the center of the back three. You talk about last line of defense, and how many goal line clearances does Thiago Silva have this year? It's like 2 or 3. The guy's fantastic. Again, 37, it blows my mind. I hope in 4 years when I'm 37 that I can play in the Premier League and be that good.
You got time.
I just can't believe he keeps scoring goals. Like, was anyone surprised that he scored today? No, because we're getting used to our 37-year-old defender scoring goals off free kicks like that. Like, you take a step back and it sounds just bizarre, like that we're getting goals out of him as well. He had another effort that went maybe a yard over the post on a corner kick. It's not a fluke. Like, he's regularly in the action on those set pieces, and that's super impressive too. If I was 37, I'd be like, you young bucks, you go. I'm gonna kick back, and when they break, I'm gonna read them better than like you said, Collins, know where they're gonna be before they do, and outplay them that way. That's what I would be doing if I was 37. I'd be like, you guys got it. I'm good. I'm gonna chill back here. And he's like, no, he's taking full run-ups, 2-footed jumps and getting heads on balls. Like, get out of here, man. That's hilarious. And I don't know. I'm still shocked that he does all of that and can do that consistently, still play the full 90 and be as impactful as he is.
My biggest thing is that since we're kind of down this path, you compare Rudy and Silva, brains versus brawn, right? That's basically the best way to describe those two. And we had talked about this before on the pod. And I'll bring this up because I think it speaks a lot to how they both play. Nobody wants to go at Rudy. Nobody. Absolutely nobody wants to even test him. Nobody wants to get into a scuffle with him. I always send out the message, when we're in games, and there's a scrap, I'm like, please don't piss him off, because he's going to make sure that he wins that battle. Don't even get into an argument with anybody else on the team, because he's going to be there, and just don't give him a reason to get involved. The thing with that is then nobody wants to go at him. So then they go to Thiago Silva. You've just eliminated half the field, right? So that definitely makes his job easier. I think that they feed very well off of each other. They know their relationship. They know how each other is going to play. And I think that is why I could see Thiago Silva, if after his new 1-year contract is over, if he still wants to play and play for Chelsea, I could see him continuing on as long as we have somebody like Rudy alongside of him. I could easily see it, because Rudy's going to do a lot of the grunt work, and Silva's just going to be an absolute mental assassin, just destroying strikers and getting to the ball before they even know where it's going to be kicked or what they want to do with it. So I like the partnership a lot. And then you can throw almost whoever you want back there as your third center back. Obviously we've talked about Christensen. He can do the job that he needs to with those two. With those two.
Alice is shaking his head vehemently, by the way, for those listening.
He can do the job he needs to as long as he has those two on the pitch with him. Trev is learning from both of them. He's probably got the same amount of goal line clearances as Thiago Silva. So he's clearly learning. And Malang Sarr, we talked about it last week. That man is coming into his own. He is putting out brilliant performances. Yeah, we were very unsure about him to start. But give him some time, let him adjust, let him learn. And I think he's finally fitting the mold that makes him thrive as a very young, up-and-coming center back that could potentially lead a line further down the road.
So real quick on Silva, I want to get my second question in here. And Matt, you had mentioned, after the 1-year deal, I think I've read somewhere that his plan after this 1-year deal is to go back and play at least one more year in Brazil. So that would put Silva here for 3 years. He's currently been here 18 months, leaving age, will that be 38? So this year's 35 to 38, 36 to 38. If he keeps playing the way he's playing for the next 18 months, does he leave a club legend? Have been being here for 3 years? Would you put him with the John Terrys and the Gary Cahills?
For me, it's got to be. I think he's got to win the league. I think if Chelsea win the Premier League and his last season, I think he definitely makes a strong argument for it. We have different layers of legend at this club, and I kind of hold Drogba, Lampard, and Terry in a class of their own, almost like the Untouchables. And then you get into where do you put the Gary Cahills and Branislav Ivanoviches and Ashley Coles of the world? And he's right there with those guys. I think he's won everything that they've won for the most part, and he's had as much or more influence as those guys have. Definitely not as long of spells, but that's what we have to grade him on. He's definitely making a hell of an argument to be one of the Chelsea greats. And I think it's not just his play, but it's his attitude and demeanor that really helps the argument. It's going to be a sad one to see go. No matter when that is, it's going to be sad to see him not play for Chelsea anymore. So that's how I view the club legend and that argument in my head. And I think we'll be talking about Silva for years. We'll be discussing his play, his influence, and it's got a special meaning to us because we started the podcast this year and he's kind of coming in this year and being as dominant. So it'll always kind of hold a special place in my brain. But I think he'll be in that discussion. What do you think, Matt?
This is going to be the most asinine response ever. I just want to preface with it.
Lord.
I don't think he will be a club legend. I firmly believe that he will not. Only for the fact that he hasn't played there long enough. I think that'll be the only gripe against him. You can't hate him as a person. You can't hate him as a player. Any single team that he's played for, he has represented the badge more than his own name. That's just who he is. And fans love him wherever he goes. I think that speaks to him as an individual, speaks to him as a professional. However, I don't think that he will go down as a quote-unquote Chelsea legend. Do I hold, as it stands right now, I hold him in higher regard than Branislav Ivanovic. Gary Cahill argument could be made. Ashley Cole is, I think, a little bit above him. Obviously, Frank and John Terry. Hazard, I think, is still a little bit above him. But I do think he will be one of the more predominantly known Chelsea center backs once he does retire or move on.
Yeah, Matt, I think you make a good point there about, he hasn't been there long enough and all that. But I will counter it with, while he may not be in the stat book a legend, like you said, he's going to go down with the fans as a legend. He's going to be a cult hero just for, him consistently scoring against Spurs. Him praising the Chelsea fans, singing his name. He has done so much in 18 months to win over fans that it's as if he is a homegrown player. It's as if he's come up through the academy. And we all know how much Chelsea fans love the academy boys. Thiago Silva is a weird one where I think he fits into that category of loved like he's played at Cobham. So yeah, I guess maybe not a club legend, but definitely a fan favorite.
We'll call it the cult hero. I think that's the good way to describe him. There you go. He didn't win the Academy Award for Best Picture, but he's beloved by the fans of the people that got to watch him play. As I was thinking about it, Matt, you make good points, and soccer doesn't retire jerseys the same way that the NFL does or the NBA does, and retire numbers. Do I think Silva's number would, hypothetically be retired? No, I don't. Like, if your club that's been around for a long, long time, if they have 9 players up there that get retired, he's not one of them. And you reserve those for the players that started young and played most of their career and had that very, very much impactful run with them. So probably doesn't fit that bill, but I think he's going to be that weird one that, where do you rank Juan Mata? Juan Mata won a couple of players of the seasons for Chelsea, had a great run. Yeah. Will he be more beloved than Juan Mata? I kind of think so. I mean, that might be a little bit of recency bias for me, but part of me thinks he will be. So I don't know. It's definitely a tricky one. It's going to be a weird one to debate years down the road. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, in Parks, you make a great point. I mean, you could throw that out with so many people at Chelsea, like Michael Essien, John Obi Mikel. He didn't play a whole lot, especially under Mourinho. does he still rank higher than Thiago Silva as far as an impact standpoint? Like Essien and John Mikel, they were not on the score sheet often, hardly at all. They did a lot of little things and they solidified a lot of things. And I'll bring it out there. Does Jorginho go down as a club legend? Like, and that's the thing I'm saying. Like, he's been there longer. He's definitely proven that he can play some parts of the game. But does he rank higher than Thiago Silva? I don't think he does. So I agree. I think it's a very cult-based, very fan-based decision to make him or to call him a club legend than it is to, put him up in the rafters or in the banners of Stamford Bridge.
All right. So one last thing before we sign out for the night here, and you guys have touched on it a little bit already, is the Antonio Rudiger School of Defending and Academy for Shithousery. I loved seeing it today. I loved Malang Sarr just kind of baiting who was that, Bergwijn, into like, come get the ball, come get the ball, come get the ball. Oh, I went out of bounds. Sorry. I love watching Dave with his antics today, because that was very not stereotypical Dave. And you saw it out of Rudiger a couple times where they'd be lining up in the box for a corner, and Tierney would have to come over and talk to him, and he'd be okay, all right. I love it. I love that it's bleeding into the defense here, and I think honestly, if Andreas Christensen would pick up on it, he would be a different defender. But that's another story for another day. But yeah, Rudiger. I mean, honestly, we have to get it in. It's contractually bound right here, but pay that man. So,
I have a quick question about defense. We can kind of do this rapid fire, but do we think we're a better team with 4 at the back or 3 with the wing back system? Because we've now shown this 4-2-2-2 against Tottenham, and it's been some of the better looks that we've had. I'm wondering if this is just a way to line up against Tottenham, or if that extra midfield player is going to be something that can be transferable down the line to other teams. So what do you think we're better, 4 at the back or 3?
3 at the back, with the caveat that we have a healthy squad. In this time, I think we need to adjust and account a little bit more in the midfield. That would be kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think when you got James and Chills back, I think the back 3 is perfect. I think with what we have available, I would go back 4. I've been saying it for a long time. I think, honestly, if we could overload the midfield, we'd be fantastic, because we have 3 of the best midfielders in the world. So, yeah, I think right now, back 4. Keep it going.
I kind of believe it as well. And the thing I love about it is we have midfielders to spare too. I mean, you could see Ruben Loftus-Cheek kind of play in that role as well. And having Conte coming off the bench in the 78th minute or whatever might be the biggest cheat code on the planet for the Premier League. It makes me laugh every single time I see it, because he's too good of a player to be coming off the bench that late. But you have to do it, obviously, with squad rotation. It feels unfair to have that level of firepower on your bench. But I think we're more creative in that system, and I think we make more runs and more balls get played in, and I think it's just an overall better look for us. Again, with the caveat of who we have available. I thought we were pretty much untouchable with 3 at the back when we had Chills and when we had Reese. Agreed.
Do we know anything about? I've been seeing some rumblings about Reece James. I saw the pictures of them both being at Cobham, working out. But do we know anything about when either is coming back?
Reece has been back doing individual training, so not team stuff yet. I would guess probably 3 weeks. So maybe slate him for the second leg of Champions League, or is that the first leg against Lille?
Lille is 222.
Yeah, yeah. So
About
I
a
mean,
month.
that seems about a good time frame for him if he's coming back to individual training. I don't think you play him against Plymouth Argyle. Like I don't think you really play a lot of your big boys against Plymouth Argyle. Club World Cup, I don't even know who's in the running for us to play against at this point. So yeah, it's a trophy, but is it really worth it in the grand scheme of things? I don't think so.
Because you get the cool badge on your jersey.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say no.
Yeah. Buy that as soon
we
as
got
it comes
Palace.
It's just, I think you have to look at the more long term. I think with where we're at with as many competitions as we're in, obviously we know Premier League is a very far-fetched imagination at this point. I think you look more towards Champions League, and I think that's kind of when you slate them to maybe not start, but at least maybe get some 20 minutes or so.
Yeah. And Chills is out for the rest of the season. I know he's having surgery, and it's he probably won't even be available at the start of next season. The way the rehab would kind of go after that. So it sounds like when does the season start? In August, September. I think it may be like November of next year, kind of a thing, or late October, kind of a return. It's a lengthy recovery process. So that one hurts.
We'll be okay because Dylan Williams will take his spot and show out. We'll just real briefly mention. Oh, we made our first signing of January. Left back Dylan Williams out of Derby County. So,
hooray!
Congrats to him. Welcome to the squad. You're now better than Marcus Alonso.
He's made 2 appearances so far this season, I think, something like that.
And he'll be starting. He'll be starting against Plymouth Argyle.
I'm good with it.
Lewis Hall.
Yeah, let's say I'll take Lewis Hall all day, but that'd be a good match for him to get out there.
All right. Well, on that note, that wraps up our episode 21 here. Boys, it's been a pleasure. If you'd like to follow any of us on social media, certainly check out our YouTube. We got all of our handles there. You can follow the podcast itself on all social media at FlagDownPod. As I mentioned, we are now on YouTube. If you prefer to watch us rather than listen to us, certainly give us a follow there. Otherwise, keep listening. We appreciate anyone who listens, gives us any kind of feedback. It's been great interacting with people along the way. So if you ever have any questions, any topics you want covered, feel free to give us a shout on social media. But as I was mentioning with podcasts, subscribe, rate, and review, please. So with that, boys, congratulations on another week, and time to relax, just like the Blues.
Amen to that.
With you on that.
Cheers.
Later, boys.
Cheers.